17 days of sustainability. Today, we are honored and thrilled to have the CEO of Stylyze and Board of Advisor of Women in Cloud, Kristen Miller, leading up a fantastic panel on entrepreneurship. Kristen, welcome.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much.
Please.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It is such an honor to have you and this Women in Cloud-led panel as part of the 17 Days of Sustainability. And we know that you have a fantastic lineup of panelists. And we're very excited, not only us, but our global audience, to hear what key insights and perspectives that you all have for the 17 Days of Sustainability.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. And today we're really excited to talk about how enterprise-ready accelerators can help female tech founders, and talking about this UN goal number 5, which is achieving economic equality for women and girls and empowering all women and girls through the lens of accelerators for female tech founders. This UN goal is so vitally important to us because we've all heard dismal stats about how inequality for women really impacts our economy, how it impacts education, healthcare, personal safety, and also how it impacts our growth and coming out of poverty for some countries. So what we know is that by achieving economic equality by 2025, there's projections we can increase the global GDP by $28 trillion, 26%. So this is a really exciting initiative to be part of. And by working in the community to help female tech founders accelerate their businesses, we can go a long ways towards achieving this goal together. So I'm very excited to introduce the panel today. We're going to start with Shari, who is going to share a bit about her background and how she arrived at the role that she did in the company that she's currently at. Shari, I'll hand it over to you.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, great to be here. Yeah, so how did I get here? You know, it wasn't a straight road. It was a circuitous route. I think all entrepreneurs feel that way, right? You start out to solve a problem in the world and you end up with a company. That happens so often. So I started out wanting to solve a problem, so people were engaged in their companies were engaged in the community, and it was very much for profit, but it wasn't only about profit. We didn't lose track of the bigger picture. So what we do as a company is break down those sort of skill sets so that they're easy to follow, and it equips teams to actually achieve these things and become excellent in an economy like ours that changes so often. So we basically take top leadership skills, make them super accessible. So that's what we do. And I just got here because I wanted to solve that problem. I didn't love knowing that people didn't love their jobs, and CEOs were upset at their leaders and their people, and there's this huge gap. So we close it.
That's amazing. We're excited to hear more about your journey as we continue the conversation. Tiffanie, if you could introduce yourself and your company, that would be wonderful.
Hi, everyone. I am Tiffanie Stanard. I am the founder and CEO of Stylyze. And Stylyze is a relationship intelligence platform that uses data analytics to help companies of all sizes make better purchasing decisions. And I came to this idea from being a full-time entrepreneur for 15 years and trying to sell either a product or a service to another company, especially an enterprise company. And I really wanted to really streamline the process of how you search, manage, evaluate, and select a vendor, and helping you find the right vendor at the right time. And on both ends, whether you are a buyer or a vendor, it always came down to relationships. And there was no way to really digitize how you build a relationship with either a vendor or a buyer. And I wanted to streamline that process just from a lot of on and off bad experiences for 15 years and other feedback from other companies are like, how do we make this better? We have an amazing product or service that we want to work with another larger company. How do we do that? So came up with the idea and have, had an amazing journey thus far, and especially working with Microsoft, being built on Microsoft, and really helping enterprises streamline their process, reduce purchasing costs, and really build relationships with the vendors in their system or outside of their system.
Oh, that's so exciting. Thank you so much, Tiffanie. Now, Rob, I'd like you to introduce yourself. You've done a lot to support the female tech community, so we're excited to hear about your work.
Yeah, no, I'm extremely excited to be here. So I am a trade commissioner with Global Affairs Canada, and Global Affairs Canada is effectively sort of the U.S. State Department, U.S. Department of Commerce, and USAID kind of all rolled into one. So it's really Canada's foreign affairs arm. How I've got here, really, I've been in economic development in some form or another for the past 15 years. I really sort of cut my teeth more actually doing international trade policy in APEC, in Asia, and a lot of focus on economic development, helping small businesses access the global market, but also working with some very large tech companies who are looking to formulate, what trade should look like going forward for tech. So, my earliest sort of introduction to cloud was really talking about, cross-border data flows and where data centers are going to be built in different countries. But more recently, joining Global Affairs, I really actually enjoy the switch from working on large sort of trade issues to now my daily work is just working with small companies, helping small Canadian companies specifically, and helping them access the U.S. market. So it's actually a very helpful and rewarding job to actually work with a small company. It can be based anywhere in Canada, from Nunavut to BC to Halifax, and really helping them understand how they can start selling into the United States. And then also, on the flip side of that, helping U.S. companies that are looking to access the U.S. market. So, helping those small entrepreneurs has really been rewarding experience over the last few years.
Oh, thank you so much for your work. And, along those lines, I would love to spend a few minutes talking about what challenges female entrepreneurs face when selling to the enterprise. So I know that for a lot of us, selling to enterprise feels like a David and Goliath story that we're living over and over and over, right? And we need to have a product that is productized to serve the enterprise market. So that's kind of challenge number one. And then we also need to have a pricing strategy that works for the enterprise market, challenge number two, and the sales strategy and a go-to-market strategy that allow us to effectively penetrate that market. And for a lot of us entrepreneurs, we either haven't had experience previously selling to the enterprise, we have challenges maybe with our, again, our product strategy or our pricing strategy. And so that can be a really big barrier to getting that business. And I think for female tech entrepreneurs specifically, there's often some additional challenges and biases that we face along the way. So I'll open this question up for anyone to jump in on first, but if you can share your perspective on some of the unique challenges that we face as female tech entrepreneurs selling to the enterprise, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I can start. I definitely know a lot of challenges include from them not thinking that your product is enterprise ready, them not thinking that you have the finances and resources to sell and maintain a contract with, a large enterprise. And then also maybe not having the experience or the team to sell to an enterprise. So those are a lot of the biases that are portrayed to, women-owned businesses as they're trying to sell their product or service to, these larger entities. And I know with us at Stylyze, that is one of the things that we're looking to solve as we're trying to really streamline and really digitize the process of search and evaluation to give companies all of the data that they need to make a decision when selecting the best company for a contract. And they may happen to be a woman or, a person of color, and really streamline that process. So it's a lot of biases that they just have in general about women that you have to kind of overprove yourself throughout the process and make a lot of, friends and build a lot of relationships with multiple departments before you can actually settle on the one that you want to sell to.
That's a great perspective. So it sounds like from your experience, not only are the challenges of selling to the enterprise real in general, but as a woman, you felt that there's some additional challenges in getting those contracts over the line.
Right. Yeah.
What has your experience been, Shari? I think you're still on mute. We can't hear you.
Here we go. Sorry about that. So yeah, what for my experience, I had a doubly difficult time in that I hadn't been in an enterprise environment. So I had a lot to learn about how to actually sell to them, let alone being a woman and not understanding the disadvantages of being a woman and selling in. So I think Women in Cloud actually helped me a lot to understand exactly what you just described, how to structure a deal, what the pricing looks like, what the relationship looks like. And I think that was really helpful. But it was still a challenge to get the meeting. You know, you're underappreciated. It was everything you guys are speaking about. And what was interesting, which I think is sad but true, is that partly because I went through Women in Cloud, I got that education, and I actually attracted a male partner, and now I'm getting meetings. So it's sad but true. So
you raise a really valid point that we haven't discussed yet, Shari, which is just network and access to the decision makers, to the right people that for so many of us, you know, we might not have had careers in the particular space maybe that we're selling into, or we might not have been as high up. And so then to be able to get those doors open for us to have access is really something that can either accelerate us or hold us back if we don't have that vehicle. Rob, from your experience, what have you observed in terms of challenges for women tech entrepreneurs selling to the enterprise?
Yeah, I think, it was said earlier, 100% it's access. And, with the companies that I work with, again, they vary in the types of companies they are and geographically where they are. I mean, in Canada, we're also dealing with a language barrier. I'm often working with, companies in Quebec where English is a second language. So there's another layer of challenge for them. But for us, and this is the reason we're such a strong supporter of Women in Cloud, is that it grants that level of sort of access that you otherwise can't get. And when we're dealing with Canadian companies that are looking to explore the US, they're also dealing with additional burden of the border. And it's actually kind of an interesting sort of silver lining of everything with COVID related right now, is that we're able to actually do a lot more digitally. So with Women in Cloud actually going fully virtual for this cohort, we actually have female entrepreneurs from across Canada. So, 2 based in Quebec and 2 in BC. And we even have some companies that are in small towns from Saskatchewan. And I'll admit, even though I'm a Canadian, I actually don't even know where those towns are. I had to look them up. So we have these companies, and for them, this is just an opportunity that is second to none, really, because they're accessing, and it's not just the program itself, but it's the community. So they're finding those champions, and it's a bit of a challenge. It's unfortunate that female entrepreneurs need those champions. But although we do find that no matter what the business is and who's leading it, small businesses do need a champion on the other side of the table, really. But having that tremendous community which spans continents now, they can tap into that, and that's what they need, because they just don't have the bandwidth. Small companies don't have the bandwidth to seek these people out. And really, just our ability to partner with Women in Cloud will be game changing for all of the companies involved.
That's amazing. That's a great way to raise you about, even though COVID has presented us all with a lot of challenges, one of the opportunities that it's presented is the world has gotten ever smaller, right? I mean, we're doing business out of our homes or wherever we may be at that moment in time. And it doesn't matter whether we live in a small town in Saskatchewan that no one's ever heard of, or if we're in the middle of Seattle or New York City. So that's a really exciting opportunity to take advantage of in this moment in time. To dive into the experience that you've all had specifically with the Women in Cloud Accelerator, or Rob, anecdotally through the entrepreneurs that you've spoken with, can each of you share a little bit about what your experience was, and if there's any specific moments or highlights or stories that you think the audience would enjoy hearing? Please feel free to share those as well.
Yeah, I can start. It's been amazing, and I'm not just saying that because we're on this panel. It's been an amazing month. 6 months now, I guess it's been. Of working with the Women in Cloud team and all of the women that are part of the cohort. And I would say when it went digital, obviously I understood, but I was excited to see people in person. And then when it went digital, I, love the fact that, everything ended up being recorded, and, you can kind of, learn and continuously learn after the fact. But literally everything that we've done in the accelerator were items that we were currently working on, from, expanding our relationship with Microsoft, because we've been built on Microsoft since our inception and we wanted to do more with them, to meeting more women in cloud. I know a lot of women in technology. I don't know a lot of women building cloud solutions. And I needed that community to see the difference in the conversations that we have to have, especially when we're selling our solution to a large company. The community and the conversations, the office hours that we have every week. I literally look forward to every Thursday, 11 a.m. my time, to really ask questions and dive deeper into the items that we're currently working on as a team. And we ended up, launching on the Microsoft Marketplace and app stores. And I don't think I would have done that if it wasn't for Women in Cloud Accelerator, because I think sometimes as women, we think we're not ready for something. We think our product's not ready. We have to be perfect. And just working with Chatra and Raza and their team of like, no, you're ready, post. Just get it. And that was really important, because I probably would have waited another 3 months before I did that. And getting our documentation ready, and all of our, customer facing documentation, and pitching multiple times, and listening to other women and advisors that attending different meetings really helped us over the last 6 months. And I can promise you, we would not have gotten any of these things done as quickly if we were not a part of Women in Cloud. We had a whole plan for 2020, and of course the year changed, right?
Yeah.
And Women in Cloud helped create structure for us throughout these last few months.
That's great experience. Thank you so much for sharing that. Shari, what was your experience?
100%. I thought maybe you said 3 months. I thought I was a year away from trying to go after an enterprise deal, and to just build and grow more organically. And then of course, Chitra completely changed my mind, and like you, gave us the structure to kind of get ready and get ready really rapidly. So I have to say, in that process, the aha moments were that we were ready. And it wasn't a big deal to sort of restructure what we were doing to accommodate them, an enterprise deal. It wasn't that difficult to figure out how to put the pitch together. We're only a few steps away. It wasn't an outrageous amount of work. We just didn't have the know-how to get there. So Women in Cloud gave us the little steps, and gave us the help too, when we needed it. So yeah, I think it was very similar for me. Yeah.
That's amazing. It seems like it's a combination of help, but also accountability. Because when you have these regularly scheduled meetings and you have a community around you, and a Chitra who's part of that community, to have that accountability to say, okay, here's where I want to be, and then have the support to not only execute on your plan, but maybe think about how you can accelerate your plan to actually get it done. And that was my experience. So Stylyze was I was part of the very first Women in Cloud cohort. And I completely agree with everything that the two of you have shared. And I think for me, it really provided that structure and accountability and a different way to think about how to go to market. We were already in market, selling direct to very large enterprise retailers. I hadn't thought though about a channel strategy, to get to market more quickly. And, enterprise sales, as we know, can be expensive. It takes a high level of skill and talent to not only get in the door, but then close the deal. And so to have a strategy around channel, that I know, Tiffanie, you're really taking advantage of that right now too, to be able to speed up the sales cycle, which we know can take 18 months, to bring that sales cycle down, to 3 to 6 months through a channel strategy is a really huge win. Rob, when you're working with your cohort of entrepreneurs and small businesses, what are you seeing as being the biggest benefits to being part of this Cloud Accelerator?
Yeah, and we've had, I think, 3 Canadian companies go through the previous cohorts, and we're looking forward to a lot more feedback once this next cohort goes through, since there's 8 just in this new cohort alone. But I was chatting with one of the other companies. I'll leave their name out of it for now, but from an earlier cohort, and they mentioned that it was the same thing as Shari. Their time to market was shortened by around 12 months. They thought, but then I think one of the keys, and I think I've heard this from most companies, if they're lacking specific metrics on how much things have changed, it's it's mentorship. That's what a lot of the programs that I like to support provide, and that's what's really key in Women in Cloud is you're getting that mentorship, that tailored advice, which is sorely needed. And I would say Chaitra and Raiza really are key to that. We find a lot of the Canadian companies that we work with are actually quite conservative, and they don't jump in as much. And I think that's just sort of what as the conversation right now is going on. That's clearly Women in Cloud pushes the envelope. They push you a little bit out of your comfort zone, but reassure you that you are ready. And that's what a lot of the companies we work with are then finding out. So to be part of a confidence building mentorship network is really important. To sort of it's encouraging those founders to get out there and actually take that next step and realize that it's not unattainable. It actually is, and it's going to take work and it's going to take commitment. And the Women in Cloud structure, making sure you do set aside time for the programming and the office hours and everything else. You have to be accountable, but if you are accountable, sort of your options are endless. You actually can achieve what you want to do. So that's kind of what we're hitting back. So whenever I have an opportunity to work with Women in Cloud, I do, because I know that's exactly the kind of benefits they bring to the participants we recruit.
That's amazing. Interesting question. What's a challenge, or could be a set of challenges that you still face in your business that you think an enterprise ready accelerator could help you with? And also, we'll sort of piggyback this on, if you were to design your own enterprise ready accelerator, what would that look like?
Great questions. I was thinking about this earlier, like what would it look like? Definitely everything that we've experienced with Women in Cloud, and then whatever you can do in person, that always helps, just to visibly see people and have that connection in person. The only thing I would add would be, depending on the type of product that you're building, you want more touch points with kind of pre-pilots, actually. So you have the pilots where you're piloting, you're ready to onboard customers. But I think most programs need kind of pre-pilot, depending on your platform, where you need data to make your platform work. Like, for example, for us, we do a lot of integrations with other platforms as a part of a really API-driven model. And sometimes you're using a lot of dummy data, but you want to use data directly from a potential customer. So doing pre-pilots that allows you to really work with the customer or a potential customer as you're building out, and then go on an actual pilot when your product is ready, will allow you to, one, limit a lot of technology time in development with your team, playing around, right? Trying to figure out some things if you're directly working with the customer on the pre-side, and then going to the pilot side, and then full launch side when you're going to market.
That's really interesting, Tiffanie. It's almost like if you think about the stages that you go through, if you had a focused part of the accelerator that said, we're going to help you get a pilot together that's really strictly for the use of your internal team from an R&D perspective, but then also to use to start the sales process, right? So if the product's maybe not ready to go, but if you had enough there to then use to get into your first conversations, that would probably help fast track the sales process as well.
Yeah, it helps with sales process. It helps with a lot of wasted time in R&D until you have real data, until you have a real customer and working on a real pilot. I think if we do more of those types of items in the accelerator, kind of on the prototype stage before, a lot of people, you don't work with them until you're ready, right? But to get ready, you need their data, you need their feedback, in addition to what you know about the industry and the field. I think it will accelerate not only sales time, but just eliminating costs and time that you spend developing things that you may or may not need.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What are your thoughts, Shari?
Okay. The thing I would add, because it's a great program, the thing I would add, in addition to what you were saying, Tiffanie, because that's brilliant, is more maybe pitching time, learning how to, make that sales pitch, sort of set up how the sales process works, learn a little bit, as you're describing, about the complexity of that sale, and how that might work. And the other thing I would add would be even more mentorship. I think I had a really great advisor, and it went really well. And I think we all could benefit from even more conversations and a little bit more exposure. As you guys were saying earlier, it is a lot of getting in as personal relationships, and so to sort of grease the skids there, have a few more conversations, a few more opportunities, kind of explain what you're doing to the people who can make a difference and actually give you access. I think that would be a really lovely addition.
Those are great ideas. How about you, Rob? What have you observed? Where do you see opportunities?
I think with what Shari and Tiffanie have said, sort of is reinforces that the WIC program actually is already a tremendous platform. So because I think they're both saying basically we want just more of what's almost offered in a way. So it's actually a testament to the fact that the program is actually really good, and the fact that it's so good, you just want to, more mentorship, more pitch time. But I certainly would agree with both their the feedback, and that's what we've heard as well. And actually, I hear that from not even just in this program, but any companies that I work with in Canada. It's opportunities for more pitching to network more with their potential buyers. I actually always advise any companies that I'm working with that are looking to sort of take their first step into the region here is you just need to sort of become part of the community. Unfortunately, there's no replacement for in-person meetings fully, and of course we're in a situation where that isn't exactly possible right now. But the more FaceTime you can get, the better. So whether that's with mentors or just other potential buyers that though you want to sort of do a pre-pilot with, I think that the program itself though is fantastic, and I haven't heard a single bad thing about it from any of the Canadian participants so far. So I think it's more training, more FaceTime, more mentoring. All those things would be great values.
I think, as I was listening to the three of you and then thinking about my experience as well, it almost feels like, because we all want more, I think, more from Cloud Accelerator. We love it. We want more. But eventually, maybe there's an opportunity to have a series of accelerators. One of the things that I experienced in my cohort, and some of it I think is because we were also the very first cohort, was that we had some companies in the cohort that were pre-product, that weren't in market, not even close to being in market. We had some companies that maybe had a product that weren't in market, and then a few of us that were in market at the time. And so I could see a series of accelerators where you have one that's designed very specifically for those female tech entrepreneurs who are actually pre-product, who are looking to incubate an idea and get there. And that's some of what you shared in your set of ideas, Tiffanie, I think too, is just that stage where you're just trying to formulate what that product or solution actually is. And then I think there's an opportunity to focus on the businesses that are, that have a product, that are looking at how to best get that product into market. And then third, to focus on the businesses once they're already in market to look at, okay, how do we really fast track that? And the hope, of course, is that some businesses are going to go through all three of those cycles during the accelerator. But the reality is there may be an interesting opportunity to sort of either have separate accelerators, or maybe it's just focus groups or breakouts from that core accelerator to address those three stages in the journey. So this is sort of an interesting, maybe more general question, but we know that we're in this very strange moment in time in the history of the planets for a lot of reasons. And we're in an interesting moment in time when it comes to how we're using technology to address the evolving needs of, our societies. So I'm curious, has the pandemic and sort of the state of the world changed anything about the direction of your business? And are there any new opportunities maybe that you see as a result of where the world is at this moment?
I'm gonna jump in here. What's great for us is that we had started to move 100% online by the time this happens, and our workers are definitely all distributed, so that's helpful. So in our core of who we are, it didn't change very much. But for us, what it did was it lit a fire under us to actually create more and expand what we're offering, so that can help the businesses that need to innovate, that need to really upskill really quickly in their leadership teams, so they can come up with a brilliant growth plan in this strange and changing market. So that was a huge, it catapulted us into the future. So in a strange way, it was positive for us. And we're excited to see the results that are coming from it. So that was an unexpected change, but it was great.
A good one. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, similar for us. Being in supply chain and purchasing is not a commonly conversation topic, right? People are not talking about supply chain, but it makes the world go round, right? That's how you get all of the products and services that you utilize, whether personally or for business. So for us, it was like a couple of things. One, it was a mainstream topic all of a sudden when people started running out of toilet paper.
Yeah.
They're like, what vendor to use now? So you go into a supermarket and everything was gone and they had to change vendors or add a new vendor. So that was one. Two, our name is Stylyze. So the topic of stimulus and stimulus check made us really searchable for our website because of that. So the value prop for Stylyze was already validated prior to 2020, just based upon the conversations that we were having with big brands that were really focusing on streamlining how they search and purchase and manage, and build relationships with their third-party suppliers. But it was even more validated in 2020 just because everything was all over the place and people needed to find the right supplier at the right time. And have more visibility and be more digital, whether you was a small company selling coffee or a large company selling, a larger product, you needed to streamline that. So it was actually a really good thing for us. And my team, my tech team especially, like, we need to keep building. Everybody's excited about this topic. And, we had from potential customers to investors reach out to us that we were selling last year. They were like, oh, well, let me think about it. And they actually ended up reaching out to us because of it. And then we were able to create a lot of content. Because for the first time, even if you were not in supply chain and purchasing and B2B, marketing, you all of a sudden wanted to create a blog about the lack of toilet paper. So
yeah.
We're really able to capitalize off of the content that we're happening and our, giving our take on it and our thought leadership on it, how to really simplify it, whether you're a small company or enterprise company, how to really streamline that process. So it was actually really good for us. And I look forward to really capitalizing off of all of the work that we put into, especially this year going into next year. And then we added a new product, item to the product, focus on alerts of knowing when something is changing with one of the vendors that you're working with, whether they're out of stock or something expired or something like that. We added to, the product because of what was happening, because they were sure with something, a company was about to run out of product. We were able to, showcase that you can have that as an alert within our system to make sure you're always up to date and have real-time information on any vendor or supplier you're working with.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations on the success that both of you are having during this time. Rob, from your perspective, what are you seeing?
Yeah, no, certainly COVID has made the world smaller. Although Canada and the United States are our neighbors, there certainly can be quite a geographical separation. So working here in Seattle, I've been working now with a lot of companies based in the East Coast, which are, maybe 3-4 hours ahead, time zone wise, and they wouldn't have considered actually even looking at Seattle or the Pacific Northwest as a market that they'd want to sort of tap into. Some of these places might be, 2 or 3 flight connections away, and it really wasn't practical before, but now they actually are. And, we actually did partnered with Women in Cloud earlier in July for a B2B conference. And we originally thought we'd have a handful of Canadian companies apply, and we ended up having, I think, around 20. So we were sort of very, very excited by the support and the interest in it. And the fact that those companies, again, were geographically dispersed across Canada really is a testament to the fact that it's a new level of access. So we're limited in a lot of ways, but it is a new level of access. And one thing, and this gets a little bit outside of the specifics of the accelerator, but one thing that has changed, and this is one of the few instances where I don't have my kids sitting in the background trying to see what's going on the screen. But we actually have much more integrated work-life balances right now, and I think I'm hoping that I think it's created a new level of awareness of what working parents and entrepreneurs are dealing with on a daily basis, and it might hopefully sort of start changing the narrative in terms of, particularly for female entrepreneurs, in terms of their roles and responsibilities, and get rid of some of those myths and stereotypes of why people might not want to work with different types of founders. So the fact that we're all home, there's a realization now that everyone needs to balance, and we all have different obligations, and we still haven't managed to get everything done, right? So I'm hoping that it sort of actually encourages more people, especially for female founders, to sort of take that next step, because we're all kind of in the same boat. And I've been on countless calls where kids have photobombed or video bombed the call, and everyone's okay with it, and it's no longer this, oh well, you don't want to work with a female founder because they have a kid, and it's they're not going to be focused on this, that, and the other. I think we're all kind of in the same position, and it's created I think a profound respect for the people that are balancing those kind of priorities.
That's a really great perspective. I'm glad that you brought that up. I think there's this aspect of humanization, where this has allowed us to all be very human together. And I agree with you. I can't tell you how many kids and dogs, I've met along the way. And I think that my business partners, and in that bucket, I include all of our customers, have met all of my children. So it is, I think, added, interestingly enough, some richness to the journey, and hopefully, as you said, sort of demystified this notion of, women in technology and things that we uniquely go through, because now we're all going through it together. So final question to wrap up, and I'll direct this in two different ways. So first, back to you, Rob. Your organization invests in women accelerators, or accelerators for women. Can you share a little bit about why you've chosen to make that investment?
Yeah, and it's a great question. Canada, just like every other country really, at this point, when you look at women and men who are going into STEM fields, there's a very strong disparity and gap in between those. So even though in Canada we actually have a higher proportion of women are actually graduating from university, and I believe it's around 67% to 62% for men. The numbers that in STEM fields, it's around 20% to 40% sort of go into those fields. So you end up with a very low proportion of women going into STEM fields, and of course then coming into those positions. And some of the data I've seen is that by time a woman gets into a leadership position, there's only 10 or 12% of those are still sort of remaining in those STEM fields. So they're slowly getting sort of pulled back down. So Global Affairs Canada has a very strong mandate to support broad economic development, and we recognize the role that women have in the economy, and that's why even when we get into different trade agreements, there are actually gender chapters in trade agreements. So there's a Canada-Chile trade agreement which actually includes a chapter on gender and diversity. That actually hasn't been, I don't think, replicated in some of the other, future trade agreements, but, it depends who we're working with. But there is a shift there. So when it comes to some of the programs that we have on the Trade Commissioner side, where we're helping export development, we have specific sort of pots of funding and programs for business women in trade or women in technology. And really, this is an opportunity for us to kind of keep closing that gap. So, and it's not surprising that of the entrepreneurs that I work with, 90% of them are led by men. So, we're trying our best to make sure that when we see programs like this that are available, that we sort of support them as much as possible. And of course, it doesn't hurt that I've known Chaitra for a few years. So I 100% know that whatever she is in, she will lead as far as she can go with it, and it'll be a fantastic program. So it helps when the people running a program will do a fantastic job. But really, we're doing everything we can to kind of support diversity and gender equality when it comes to the tech field, and this goes for other industries as well. So I work specifically in the tech sector, but we have others working in aerospace or life sciences or clean tech or various other industries. And we're all trying to do that. I think it's just more apparent in the tech sector where you actually have that gap. So we're going to try to do what we can. And I think, as was mentioned earlier in this program, the sort of having those mentors, seeing there's that light in a tunnel for having those, enterprise sales and growing and accelerating your business. that's going to encourage that next generation of kids to not be discouraged to going into a STEM field. And that's one of the big problems is that, they don't see that future of being a leader in the industry, so they don't want to continue with it. So there's a lot of myths. There's a lot of stereotypes in terms of, why certain genders go into STEM and others don't. We're just trying to make sure that there are those opportunities down the line so that there's less roadblocks, less challenges to having a broad and inclusive economic development.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Rob. And finally, Tiffanie and Shari, if you could just share maybe one piece of advice for the female tech entrepreneurs who are listening to this program as they go into the accelerator program. I'm being assumptive. Sign up for it, apply for it. So as you go into it, what's one piece of advice that you would give them to help them get the most out of that program?
I would give a lot, not even just one. Attend all of the office hours, even if it's recorded, because there's nothing like interacting with the team and the other cohort to be able to ask questions and really, truly give everything good and bad that's happening within your company. Really take advantage of the community, not only, reaching out to other women outside of different programs, but just connecting with them and scheduling virtual coffees or in person and making sure that you are really using each other's experiences to grow your experience and really grow your community and how to help other women and to make sure that you're really understanding what everybody does so you can know when an opportunity is available for each other. Like, it's about really building the community. Like, if I see a potential customer for someone else that may not fit me or maybe does, like, making that connection is really important. And don't take for granted these women that are literally in the trenches with you, building and selling something similar to these large companies. And it's so important to have this venting sessions and be able to just talk about everything we do on a weekly basis. So just take full advantage. Don't miss any office hours. Don't miss any, one-on-one conversations or events or pitch competitions. Just try to be a part of everything.
That's great, Tiffanie. Thank you. What's your one piece of advice, Shari?
Ask questions. I don't, it's just the funniest thing how women think they need to seem perfect, like they know it all. And maybe it's because we're struggling. We struggle to get that notoriety. We struggle to get those meetings like we talked about. And we feel like we have to pretend we know everything, but not here. Don't. Ask questions and show up with hard questions, because what I realized is after, a couple of meetings, I'm like, oh, I didn't even understand that, because I had a bit of a learning curve, and I'd go ask somebody else and they'd go, I don't know either. And it's like, well, why didn't you ask? And why didn't you ask? So really, probably everybody has that same question. So I would just encourage everyone to be vulnerable. That's when we're going to learn.
That's
and
great.
to, yeah.
Well, thank you so much,
Ask.
Shari, Tiffanie,
Yeah.
Rob. Thanks to all of you for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you as part of this conversation. And now we'd like to invite you to join the conversation by taking action. So if you're a female tech entrepreneur, please apply for the next Women in Cloud Accelerator. Find ways to plug in to take your next right step. If you're a member of the business community or the political environment, please plug in, find a way to support female tech entrepreneurs. We're brilliant, so hire us, give us the contract, and invest in what we're doing. And together we can achieve this UN goal number 5, which is economic equality and empowerment for all women and girls. Thank you.